everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of Book Writing Tips, quick tips for new and seasoned authors, and I am your host, Alba Arango. First of all, Happy New Year! I hope you all had a very safe New Year's Eve and you are ready to tackle 2026 and all the writing challenges and fun that comes with it. And I know my voice sounds a little weird, but that's because I'm still a bit under the weather, so I'm going to do my best to keep my energy level up while we talk about this week's subject, which is subplots. How to deepen your story with subplots. So, with no further ado, let's get down to it. Let's talk subplots. Alrighty then, today's episode will be in two parts as always. In part one, we're first going to talk about why use subplots at all. Why not just write one storyline and that's it? And then we're going to talk about what are some of the most common types of subplots. And then in part two, we're going to talk about how do you correctly pace or balance the subplot with your main storyline. So let's get to it. Part one, let's start with why. Why use subplots at all? It would seem like so much easier if you could just literally have one storyline and then it wouldn't be complicated and you wouldn't have to worry about all of this. But using subplots, probably the number one reason that authors use subplots is for characterization. It's a great way to deepen the characterization of your main character and even your secondary characters as well. And how many subplots should you have? I don't know. Every author is different. Every story is different. Some might only have one or two, and some might have three or four or more. So go by whatever your particular story is about to decide how many subplots you really want to have. More than just characterization, though, if your story is really heavy on a theme, and the theme could be friendship, it could be, kindness or giving, a subplot can really add even more depth to that theme, more than just your main storyline. And if you're writing sci-fi or fantasy, subplots are a great way to add even more emphasis on your world building, ways to maybe bring in more of what your characters are seeing without actually being part of the main storyline. So subplots are really just a great thing to have altogether. But what are some of the main kinds of subplots you could have? There are tons of different kinds of subplots, but here are some of the main ones you may want to think about when writing your story. Probably the most common is the romantic subplot. So your character maybe is, if you're writing romance, then a romantic subplot would be something other than your main storyline. So if your main storyline is romance, then maybe a romance of side characters would be a way to incorporate a romantic subplot. But if you're writing anything other than romance, if you're writing sci-fi, if you're writing crime, whatever you're writing, a romantic subplot is a great way to provide additional characterization to your main character. Have your main character have a romantic interest. And that's kind of a cool subplot, what happens with that romantic interest. Or it could even be a platonic interest. So it could be like a best friend or a new friend. Or you could have two separate subplots. One, a romantic subplot, and one, a different subplot with the best friend. And those two subplots could be things that really add depth of character to your main character. Now, another kind, if you really want to go in this direction, is to add a nemesis subplot. And I'm not talking about the villain. That's part of your main storyline. I'm talking about a nemesis. And this could be, someone at work or someone in, the family, but someone that is kind of like a rival or a nemesis to your main character, but that's not exactly related to your main storyline. So not the villain, someone else. And of course, probably one of the more common ones is the flashback subplots. Flashback subplots are a great way to add background information if they are paced correctly. So if you're going overboard with the flashbacks, then, well, that might be too much. And I know we've talked about this in other episodes too, but flashbacks are a great way to add depth of character. And if they're woven throughout the story as a subplot, then you've got a really great tool to add depth of character to your main character. Now, how, though, do you pace or balance the subplot with your main storyline? And that is where we get to part 2. But before we get to that, it is time for the crazy law / writing prompt. And if you're new to this show, every week I give you a crazy law. And this is a real law that once upon a time in history was a real law. And your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to write a story based on that crazy law. And that's just a way to kind of flex your writing muscles and maybe give you a little distraction from your work in progress. So here we go. This week's crazy law. In Indianapolis, Indiana, a mustached citizen may not kiss anyone. Haha, there you go. Now, what could have happened to have made that a law? That is for your imagination to go crazy. All right, back to subplots before my voice completely dies out. First of all, how do you balance this with your main storyline? And I need to tell you just a little bit more about a subplot before we talk about that. A subplot really does need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It should have its own story arc. And that story arc should kind of mirror your main storyline. And it should have a resolve. Like your subplot should be resolved by the end of the story. So let's say your main character is having completely unrelated, right, to your main story. Your main story is a mystery, and your main character is having problems with rabbits eating her garden. Now that's kind of introduced at the beginning, a completely unrelated story arc. What does, rabbits have to do with your main storyline? That's the point. You want to add characterization, right? You want to bring more of your character's traits other than there being a detective into the story. But that could also be a way to introduce theme. It could be a way to introduce struggles your character is going through. So at the beginning of it, she discovers, rabbits are eating, her garden. And the middle of it, she's trying all these different things to kind of tackle that problem. Just like throughout the main storyline, she's tackling the main problem with all these different things. And then at the end, she resolves the issue. And that could be she digs up her garden. That could be she puts a fence around it. That could be she just decides to give the carrots, all the carrots in the world to the animal. Whatever the case may be, it is resolved. But be careful with your pacing, because one of the most important things about a subplot is that it needs to be interwoven with the main plot. So at the beginning of the story, when your character is first starting off on their hero's journey and they're encountering all these issues, that should kind of be mirrored in the subplot as well, where they're encountering all these issues. And as things get more tangled in the main storyline, they should get more tangled in the subplot as well. And then when the subplot is resolved, that could even be the aha moment that your character needs to resolve the main issue. And again, if you're a thematic, you're writing about a theme, the theme is kindness, then whatever is resolved at the end of that subplot could also reflect that theme as well. And now you're not just doing characterization, you're also having the subplot contribute to your theme, contribute to your world building. This is a great tool for authors to use to really get more in depth. Now, one thing you do need to be careful with subplots is pacing. You want it, again, to mirror your main character line. And I find, for me personally, one of the easiest ways to do this is in storyboarding. So if you had storyboard, which I have done a whole other thing on storyboarding, I really find it very, very helpful in this way. You can have the storyboard on there. And if you use Scrivener, it's a great tool for that because you can kind of see your main story put out on cards on your storyboard. And then you can kind of see where the arc of your subplot should go. Where should the struggles take place? Well, they should take place around the same time that your character is struggling as well. Where should it be resolved? Well, it should be resolved in a way that it literally leads to your main character resolving the main storyline. But they do need to, the subplots do need to be interwoven into your story, and they need to be relevant to the main story. There needs to be a reason for that subplot, and it has to do with your main story. And I will tell you, I was at a writer's conference once, this was a few years back, where I heard an agent panel, and one of the agents was just complaining about how this particular author, she received this manuscript, and this author had 2 or 3 subplots that had absolutely nothing to do with the story. Like they literally went nowhere. And this agent was so frustrated, they just removed them. There's no point for them being there. Remove subplots if they don't have to do with the story, where they don't help the character resolve the issues in the main story. So just be careful with that when you are doing subplots, and I think you will be just fine. Now, it is New Year's Day. I hope you are all planning on a very successful 2026. Please, please, please let me know if you like this. Please like the show, like the episode. I so hope this has been helpful to you. And if you have suggestions of things you would like to see, please hit me up. Go to my website, albarango.com. I have a way for you to contact me there. You can just email me and let me know what you are interested in hearing about. And I would love, love, love to hear from you. So until next week, take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful New Year's Day and 2026. May this year bring you nothing but joy and happiness and prosperity. Love you all. God bless.